Oh my god. Reporting live from the writer's room. And this is Reliable Narrator, the podcast. Welcome to episode 6. I am your host, Dom. Be prepared for chaotic storytelling, just my kind of nonfiction. Let's get into it, shall we? Welcome to episode 6. I am really fucking excited about this episode just because it is Gen Z's episode. It's about Gen Z print story from Minero issue, volume 42, The Art of Intention. And for those who are, barely hopping on, February's content is going to be explaining why I wrote what I wrote, but also why I creatively helped produce this issue. Art of Intention, a generational love letter to our past, present, and future. I explain these stories and these narratives and these subjects and how it not only links back to my creative nonfiction pieces, but also how to document our world right now, how to document events and what is going on, and also the hopeful and the good moments of our world that we still have. That is a much needed conversation just because I think so many things are getting circulated within social media and within, headlines and the coverage. We need to have a little bit more space and spreading the word of kindness a little bit more powerfully than the hate that goes along with what is happening in our world. This spring issue, this generational love letter to human nature. This is how I choose to document my world. This is how I chose to how to do it. It's like this is my way of giving back to the world that helped raise me. You know what I mean? My world, the city that I currently reside in, the people that I see every single day. This is how I choose to give back. So we are covering 4 stories backwards from the timeline that we have in print. For example, last episode we covered the last print story. This episode we are covering the second to last print story, which is Gen Z, the bridge that connects 2 worlds, written by Eileen Morales and photographed by Victoria Adler. Beautiful, astonishing narrative journalism that is taking place here. In this episode, I want to discuss 2 pieces. Of course, the main root being the Gen Z print story, and how my final Between You and Me magazine column essay, Wishful Winter, Please Be Good to Me, how it connects to this narrative. I also want to explain how they work and how they function by themselves and their similarities rather than their differences. Please keep in mind that angle is going to be a huge, huge theme for today's episode. First of all, stunning visuals. I really wanted every single generation to have their own a cohesive look to their generation that can be described through static visuals. And I think the warmth and the down-to-earth nature of how Gen Z is really, really emulated in these static visuals. It's powerful and it's palpable even. You can you're in it. You're in these scenes. You know what I mean? You're underneath the freeway at Lincoln Park. We have 2 amazing Gen Z sources, which I am so grateful to have found them. Right person, right time. Very serendipitous, okay? So Andrea and Sondos. The story does a fantastic job of letting these subjects speak their individual truth, but also shows how powerful these 2 voices are together. They didn't even know each other prior to working the story together. They just happened to be 2 interviewees that just seemed to fit the profile of this story. They found more relatability with one another than they found differences, even though we are looking at 2 different worlds, 2 different scopes of cultures. The Palestine from Sondo's side of her narrative, then we have Andrea's Hispanic side of her narrative. I love how these 2 worlds are happening and they are coexisting beautifully in between these pages and in these narratives to the Palestine and the Hispanic perspective here. It's all under one place that we call home. That is El Paso, Texas, the borderland. How El Paso can really get misconstrued and painted in a bad light, especially from the outsiders that don't know us, that have never made the effort in visiting our city. They have it all wrong. I mean, this fucking issue is literally proving those narratives, those outside narratives, wrong on what our binational, biculture, really deep pride region and city that we are made of and what we can offer to, I don't know, society. The home-like feeling is very prominent in this story. We have two home bases. Andrea is talking about El Paso, Texas being her homeland. Sondo's perspective on where her home is, which is in Palestine, which is in Jordan, where her parents came from. But she's a resident of El Paso. Andrea and Sondos go to the same university. They found more alike than they did differences, which is very, very much emphasized in their creative writing pieces, which I will read out loud. Yeah, I just totally forgot to record the creative writing pieces out loud, so sorry. So Sondos actually embroidered her creative writing piece. I literally told these women to just write their heart out, and this is how they chose to write their own power thought. Let me read Andrea's first. Hello, people that belong here. Awaken, don't go to sleep. Let all of us fight against that evil tyrant, for he is truly our misery, and his decrees are not worthy of our obedience. If we let him, he will destroy entire nations. Resist, don't surrender. Go beyond, despite all efforts to stop one. Shine in the darkness. Survive to fight another day. And don't be sad, because dawn always comes again. And then she translates and has a small message of her creative writing piece in her native language and tongue. So I have Sondo's creative writing piece. It is absolutely so beautiful, and I need to put this up. And I need to put all of the creative writing pieces up. So Sondos writes in her embroidery, from roots in anew, back journey, old intertwined in, you are the faith to dreams, and true beliefs. Colors that pattern the living. And I am never going to shut the fuck up about this. Thank you, Sondos, and thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much for your compassion, for the love of your community. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. That kind of voice is something that is one of a kind, and that it belongs individually to them. The sum of those two parts coming together is just absolutely a grand experience. What they are teaching us in this Prince story via their own truth and their own narrative is that international love fucking pitbull is always gonna be in my life. Intentional love, they teach us how to carry it, how to surrender it, and how to hold it, because this is the art of intention, right? So intentionality is huge. And they also teach us on how speaking up takes strength and courage. I keep on thinking about this quote. No one knows the violence that it took to become this gentle. And to be gentle and kind takes fucking willpower, and it takes fucking strength. And I think that's why it's so much easier to stay angry and to be hateful than it is to actually care for something and have compassion towards something, instead of just using the arrogant route. I think that's why I want this episode to talk about the similarities and the familiarities that you find in between these narratives and in between these lines of the story, because I think that's just so much more worthwhile of a conversation to have than it is to talk about only the differences and the contrasts that is between them. It would be a whole different episode if I was talking about the border that was between these two subjects. And that takes strong, critical awareness. This is going back to last episode on how Gen Alpha, the kids and the teenagers of today's world, can teach us empathy by simply being around other people. What I love about this story of Gen Z is that it's telling us, not asking for permission to tell us, or not putting it nicely or putting it politely, but they are literally demanding, and they have a very stern outlook and perspective and stance in which they will continue to fight for, on how empathy is born out of love. This generation is the personification of wit and grit. I mean, that's exactly how I can describe Gen Z. I think it's all due to like the climate that we grew up in, and the climate that we are in right now. The majority can really stick it to you and put you in their place. When they have something to say and they call you out about it, they have to have wit with that grit, Like, this is due to how they parasocially interact online. We weren't born into a digital world. We were slowly getting immersed into it. I think we have like a huge different relationship comparing to Gen Alpha kids on how to treat people online. These two sources in this print story are fucking demanding their desires, which is a much needed fucking conversation, especially in terms of like going against the grain of like the patriarchy and maybe even like the older generation's rhetoric and the way that they think. But I think like actually asking a woman of Gen Z, what do you actually desire? And that's another thing that like they understand the fucking difference between wants and their needs. Their desires, it's going to come from a place of necessity, not out of want. And in that act of speaking, verbally speaking out their desires, we can find ourselves in these narratives and how our parallels can cross paths with someone or even a whole community we never thought was even possible. Okay, for example, might be a little off topic just because it's not a prominent branch in the story, but I think of like the No Sabo kids, especially in Gen Z and in El Paso, Texas. Juarez is right next door. We live in a very bilingual community, right? And I think No Sabo kids are finally getting welcomed by the fluent Spanish speakers and actually being in those communities and taking up spaces in conversations rather than being excluded from them. Like that divide between bilingual people and the No Sabo kids is getting smaller, and it's about fucking time, because even as children, it was just very hard for me to like make friends because of the language barrier, and that trickled on to like adulthood and like being in work environment, also in like in families too, not being able to have a relationship with a Spanish speaking elder. If I could, I fucking would talk to my grandparents again in Spanish, because I never really had a chance to like talk to them, only the bare minimum of like English, just because I felt embarrassed or I felt self-conscious about speaking Spanish. I really blocked off like a chance to have a relationship with them. No Sabo kids feel like they are coming home when they are interacted and finally interwebbed into these sort of communities and spaces. And in wherever you are in your journey as a No Sabo kid, learning Spanish and having a relationship with Spanish is such a coming home feeling. I'm not even talking about the validation that you get from the Spanish speakers and actually giving a fuck and actually, making the effort to learn the language, but it's also saying like coming home to the sense of coming back to your culture. You know what I mean? Like coming back into those roots and where you came from, where your fucking grandparents came from. I think about that. I think about whenever I am trying to learn Spanish and practicing my Spanish and reinforcing it, being around my own fucking community, Like I can't tell you how many times my partner and his family has helped me in my Spanish journey, because I'm not around Spanish 24/7 in my household. It's just such a coming home warm feeling of like actually, I don't know, practicing where I came from. You know what I mean? And not forgetting that. I think that also comes along with what this story challenges. They talk about, home base. They have two different home bases. We have Sondos from the Palestine home base, and then we have Andrea from the Mexico home base. They talk about these traditional options that happen when you are accessible at home. It's a cultural thing. I think both of these cultures and their traditions have the certain question of when are you going to get married and when are you going to start a family if you are in a relationship. This story, we obviously go over choosing yourself first versus trying to find a man and settle down and create a family, and that's that. Finding yourself and also finding what you want to do and what you love doing is also a huge prominent key versus the traditional options. Andrea and Sondos, they live in El Paso. They call El Paso home, but when they're home, it's the suggested obligation of settling down here, like staying here. Like Sondos' case, her parents coming from Jordan and residing here. Like, do they expect her to find herself and her future and her career here? They challenge these traditional options, which is you're at home, then you find love, you start a family, and you just settle down. You just be content. If it's not broken, then don't fix it. Second, this generation also is getting this angle too, this new perspective. First, start and build and find your own life. And if you find love, then so be it. This relationship of yours is not going to take over your entire life. Gen Z is very conscious about relationship standards and if they even want to have kids or not. This portion of Gen Z, I'm talking about the men and women, like they understand there was a life before, during, and after a relationship. This newfound perspective in terms of like family dynamics, like what they're passing on. This is the perspective I was raised in my household. It's really refreshing to hear because you don't find many Gen Z women that aren't pregnant, aren't married, or not engaged. I mean, the remainder of those Gen Z women, and if they happen to find love, then so be it. But that's not the primary focal point in their journey. What this story also challenges at El Paso is just Hispanic communities. We have a bunch of different cultural roots. I mean, Sanlos and Andrea is just the tip of the iceberg. In acknowledging that we are coming from everywhere around the world. I mean, we are a military base, so a lot of military families are here, and so we can relate to one another. The Mexico and the Palestine connection in this story is not only very powerful, but it carries a lot of pride too. This is where we came from, this is our roots, and that's something that they will never forget, and they will never make you forget either. I think that's like the beauty of like sharing where you're from and your background and your heritage and like your ancestors and the lineage of people, that the journey that they took in order for you to be right here right now. In these two cultural perspectives, again, there's a lot of like standardized pressure in terms of like expanding their family and their roots and their culture by asking you, well, when are you going to get married? When are you going to start having kids? For example, I think like Sondos does a fantastic job in speaking her truth in terms of like finding love and finding herself first in order to make wave for her career and for her future. While she doesn't rule out love, she is in no rush to find it. Her focus is helping her community and building a life of purpose. Growing up with Middle Eastern immigrant parents, she quickly learned the value of education. Her mother, in turn, emphasized the critical value of education for women. You don't want to be stuck in a relationship only because you can't support yourself. In case you ever want to leave, get your education. Which is fucking beautiful. This is what I fucking mean. And I know a lot of first-gen college students from Hispanic communities can say the same fucking thing. The everyday reality of life in El Paso mirrors the resilience of her people in Palestine, a struggle that has given her courage to speak her truth. This is Sondos. Quote, if I weren't living in El Paso, having the border and seeing the dynamics, languages, and cultures, maybe I wouldn't feel such an intense desire to help people. The genocide in Palestine and the barriers at home have ignited a deep empathy within Sondos. Empathy, she believes, is born out of love. Sondos knows that her future career as a doctor and educator will make an impact on her two worlds. As she says, when you help one person, it's like you save all of humanity. Her journey started with a home base and with one intention. Oh my god, I mean with Eileen's words plus with Sondos' quotes, it's just, you can feel the faith and the belief in our generation. This is what I mean when I say that Gen Z has desires as well. They choose career over romantic love. Again, this isn't their focal point. And in their chosen career, this is their way of giving back to the community that has helped raise them, that has grown with them. Because both of these wonderful sources, Andrea and Sondos, are activists and participators in fighting for the community and fighting for injustice. So Andrea is a Chicana from the borderland, and she wants to be a civil or human rights lawyer in the future. She really puts this narrative forward in terms of like finding romance and building herself a family and to have kids and everything. Dolores Huerta, a prominent activist of the Chicano movement, this is Andrea's quote, there was always controversy around her because she did so much for La Raza, but did have 11 kids that she neglected. A lot of people thought that was horrible of her. I just fear that I would neglect these things that I value so much if I were to have kids. And that's the honest fucking truth. Because I think a lot of older Hispanics not only ask you, every other fucking family party and get together, when are you going to have kids? When are you going to get married? because it's such a difficult conversation, especially when they don't empathize, to say it firmly with your fucking chest and being like, I don't want kids. Andrea has such a huge point in like, why would I bring a child into this world when I know that I would possibly neglect the greater purpose here, which is helping people in my community and finding purpose in that and finding fulfillment in that. Like a lot of Gen Z women are coming forward and being like, I don't want kids at all for whatever reason. I'm one of them. And I think I've always had that kind of like motherly instinct that is like in my fucking body, in my bones, in my soul, knowing that I never was really meant to have kids. And I don't even believe in marriage. I think I can have my own form of celebration of love with my partner whenever that day does come, to be legally husband and wife, because these labels don't mean anything to me. I can have a married life without having a marriage certificate and my signature attached to it, as like it's like a fucking contract. Her fucking ending quote, I just fear that I would neglect these things that I value so much if I were to have kids. And that's like the transparency of like having not only that kind of conversation with your parents and the older generation of your family, but like also with your partner too. And following that quote, Aline's words say in this excerpt, the tug of war of deciding between a career and romance left Andrea with a clear decision. Much like Sondo's, she has chosen herself and her passion. This is Andrea's quote. Part of being a woman is that we always feel like we have to give ourselves completely. That's what I'm fucking talking about. She says, a fire born from injustice but kept alive by her love for the community is the driving force for Andrea's career ambitions. These chosen careers that Sandos has as an educator, as a doctor, and Andrea for, being a civil rights lawyer and activist, this is their way of saving humanity one person at a time. Again, resisting the whole consumption of a woman, like Andrea states. I just really find it beautiful that like Andrea helping other people and legally in terms of like being a lawyer, that's her way of giving back. That's her way of quote unquote fulfilling that motherly instinct. As Sandos has too. You know what I mean? She found her purpose. She found her fulfillment. Some Gen Z women already have families, are married, are pregnant. More power to them. A lot of people that I went to high school with are now mothers and now are wives. Not that like being a wife and being a mother completely strips you away of being like a woman or like a person individually away from those titles. I touch base about these two portions of our generation in my summer Substack essay titled, I wish I was like other women who wanted the wedding and kids. I just wanted to merely just mention it and reference it. I find the time to give this essay its flowers in another episode. Again, I don't want to talk about like the differences of our generation. Definitely just want to talk about like the resiliency, because no matter which direction we go in terms of like our future, both ways are incredibly resilient. And even though this generation has splitting thoughts and direction, I think through resiliency is where one can find that we might be more alike than we are different. I think that's why this column piece is perfect for the narrative that we're talking about here, and to really connect the voice and the identity of Andrea and Sondos in their own generational story. This final Between You and Me essay, Wishful Winter, Please Be Good to Me, is probably one of my favorite column pieces. I wrote it for graduation. I fondly remember this period in my life, how, again, resilient everything seemed. This essay means hell of a lot to me because I found this act of love, of surrendering. Like, this is just another exhibit point of having power thought behind your writing. In the opening graph of the column essay, some days I wake up feeling rejuvenated by counting down the days to life post-college. And other days I think, if only I had a crystal ball to predict this long-winded winter. But instead, I have my daily dose, juggling and mixing the angst and anxiety of this new-found winter, a life patiently stationed around every corner. And I really love this excerpt. How does it know me better than I know it? We hardly met. I'm referring post-grad life because I knew there was going to be a version of myself that made it out the other end, which is me right now. And I wrote this in December and it came out the weekend of graduation. I really used my writing as like a crystal ball. I let go of my story, the angst attached to the fear of the unknown, and I gave it to the universe, which was incredibly cathartic for me and for the moment of transitioning from the days of writing and publishing the column essay and in actually immersing myself into post-grad life after graduation day. I had predictions about how I saw the life that was patiently waiting for me to walk into after graduation. Maybe 2 weeks coming up to graduation, found myself like daydreaming because I knew that day was going to happen. And the longer that I thought about it, the longer that this anxiety and this angst of the unknown was slipping away. And it was more so of like eye on the target type of moment. I had a goal of like literally just making it to the end of the semester, making it to graduation, walking that stage, and then closing off 2025. So I have here my prediction. This was my crystal ball vision here. The night is still young and magical because it's all I wanted and more. I'm surrounded by my people who chose to show up for me. These are people from my past, present, and will make up my future. Those I'll see on the other side, all in unison under the same roof, joyfully celebrating with me. Talk about worlds colliding. After all, the right people stay for all the right reasons. I see them staying after everyone goes home, not to help clean up, but to debrief until 4 a.m. in the kitchen as we say good morning to the night. The most important thing to me for graduation and for that weekend was community. Like it was said in the Gen Z story, the fight for the love is just so powerful and so palpable. It's something that you crave incessantly. I think it's like a Hispanic thing that we like crave being with our family. We all have that moment where it's like, when is the next family get together? When can I see my favorite cousins again? When can I see my padrinos? You know what I mean? We can't live with them, but we can't live without them. That kind of desire that like fires us, a family, of a sense of community, of like even chosen family too. My graduation party was not just family, it was worlds colliding. I also have another excerpt saying, it's because of the community I am surrounded by this weekend. I know I will have a story to tell, a memory I will carry on my hip forever and onward into the new year. It will be at arm's reach whenever I want to feel something. It will be my crystal ball, holstered with my name all over it, a slice of life just for me. And I definitely saw my culture and my community and my worlds colliding like Andrea and Sonos, finding more alike than differences. And I saw my graduation party the same fucking way. My best friends from high school were meeting my cousin, and my college friends were meeting my family and my partner. And at the end of it, all the right people showed up, and everyone that was meant to be there was there. So it's the best feeling when you're in a tattoo memory, when you're in a slice of life, an experience that you will be craving in the future, and you feel like you're at home. It's when your people, it's when your community, your peers make you feel like home. You know, like they carry that warmth. I say this in the column essay. I say, Saturday will feel like coming home. So please, winter, take your time. Let this night go on forever. Let me enjoy you and the ride. We have much more to go. And it's the best feeling ever when you are actively contributing and participating in a slice of life that you will never forget and that you will have fucking nostalgia for, that just like ruminates from a place of home. So about the theme of this episode, you know, how we can find that we are more alike than we are different. And I think it just all comes down to the same place that we all call home, you know, because this is where neighborly love comes into play, or brotherly love comes into play, the reverting back to Gen Alpha and what they can teach us. How not only like to treat people the way that you want to be treated, but to like take care of each other, to look out for one another, to speak up and to fight for the people that can't, like Andrea and Sondos. It all falls under the ultimate truth. Joy and celebration from all different worlds can come together for the sake of love and life and resistance. It's powerful to be in that coalescence of energy because you feel it and it's palpable and it's tangible and it's something that you can hold, and it feels like you can stay in that energy and that essence forever. And how Sondos and Andrea feel that same energy every fucking time that they know that they are contributing something to their community. by fighting for it, by speaking up, by having conversations, one interaction at a time. And joy and celebration can seep through those interactions and those exchanges of empathy. For example, Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance that just happened last weekend. Every other household in the fucking country felt something. They didn't have to understand. This goes back to fucking language and the language barrier. How language isn't everything. Fucking visual storytelling can say the same fucking message, because I think with intent, with visuals, again with action, I think can say a hell of a lot. All that needs to take place is knowing that you froze a moment in time. Even just talking about the performance is generating some type of conversation. It may not have been an experience for all. It may be only for you. Sure, you can share it, like how I'm doing with this fucking podcast, you know what I mean? I found myself writing at the end of Super Bowl on Sunday night. I was kind of tipsy, and actually no, I wasn't. I was drunk. And in my notes app, I wrote something along the lines of like how the experience that I got to witness being in a room full of my family and my family friends, and how they reacted to the Super Bowl performance, and how they were all crying, and how my dad was choked up. You know, the things that I was feeling during that moment, and like the moments that got me all choked up. You know, like the kid sleeping at the wedding, the Grammy and the kid, and the wedding couple is dancing. You can see how she's like, she has tears in her eyes, and how she's like really, really in love, you know? Again, I think we can find ourselves in these narratives, you know, which is just breathtaking. And this was Benito's way of giving back to his community and spreading a type of fucking message to the country. It's the fact that like this is literally out in the world, period. Ultimately, documenting life and building an archive is for you and for the sake of your future. It's proof that we all fucking lived. If it's just literally meant for your eyes, then that's just what it is. You know, maybe the next experience is for the masses. I have a fear of fucking forgetting, because I have a history of dementia and Alzheimer's from both of my parents' side. So I'm not just chronically nostalgic, you know, I'm not just like a control freak that like likes to record everything and take pictures of everything, but it's like the urgency of documenting out of fear of like forgetting. Even though I'm not going to have kids, like I want to be able to look back at the shit that I have lived through physical fucking media. You know, I want to keep all my fucking journals. I want to keep my fucking Substack essays. You know what I mean? Like, I want to fucking keep all of those things that mark a point in time for my life. Like, it's not only just for me, but it's for my best friends. It's for my family. It's for me, my partner. This is about community, for my people's sake, for the future. We aren't living life without a witness. Either that's the camera or a pen or simply just another person. It reminds me of the movie Shall We Dance 2004. Susan Sarandon, she has like this scene where she's explaining people get married because they need a witness to their life. She argues that amidst billions of people, marriage ensures one person will notice, care, and validate the mundane, the good, and the difficult moments of life. But either way, through documentation of life and love and everything in between, always comes from a place of home. That's what I'm talking about. Because I'm not going to be staying in El Paso for the rest of my life, right? And I know that wherever I am at, like, 55 years old, I know that when I look back at these moments and times within my journal pages, within this fucking issue, when I'm flipping through these fucking pages, I know that El Paso is in these pages. And I can come home anytime I'd like through my physical documentation of my world, of the world. I know that for damn sure. These people, specifically in this issue, are not strangers. You can find your nieces, or you can find your best friend, or you can find yourself in this Gen Z story. Again, those are witnesses to your life. So what's the point if we can't share these moments of joy and celebration and forms of resistance if it's not with another person? It goes back to how important community is and how powerful it is when the sum of two parts is one. We are more alike than we are fucking different. Going back to the performance, I think not only the whole concept of how love is more powerful than hate, but the sum of parts, branches, and cultures of people, heritage, lineage is more powerful as one. It's one heart of fire, and that fire carries passion and empathy, and it's fucking societal love. It's via wisdom that provokes action.
We fight. We have to do it with love.
not only can we learn by doing and being around, human fucking nature and how to interact with our world, it's validation that it's a necessity of fucking life, because it's that fire that keeps on getting reignited with the right people. And it just kind of reminds me of the importance of actually talking to one another and like having very communal conversations, especially how ignorance can come from misunderstanding or, lack of awareness or education. Indulge into these slices of life that are waiting in every fucking corner of experience. It's waiting for you. It's literally waiting to be lived in. And it's our choice to hop into those slices of life and just experience and see what comes out of it. So that is why I wrote what I wrote for the final column piece and how it connects back to Mineto's brand new spring issue. And I think I had a lot to say just because I am Gen Z as well. And the overall feeling that we got from Benito's performance is documentation of life and our world that we're surrounded by. And again, I think celebration and joy is a form of fucking resistance, and to document those fucking times. I shall see you next Friday when we talk about millennials and their platonic friendships and the love that comes along with it. I'll see you all next Friday. Bye, guys.